Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Today is December 5th. It's about 2:38 p.m. and we just had a great summit. Brought all the product people together, the commercial people together. We even had a few technical people. And it's rare at IOHK. Usually we're all science, we're all academic, we're all engineering. And this time around, we had product and commercial. So the old, how do you make money? What do we do? How do we solve problems? It's good to actually bring that in. So it's been a great week, a very informative week, a very product-oriented week. We learned a lot about where Cardano's at. We learned a lot about where Cardano's going, and we're working under Aparna's great leadership towards forging a wonderful roadmap for Cardano 2020 that we feel will be very competitive, very compelling, and really help us get to where we need to go as an ecosystem. Furthermore, actually really give people strong incentives to adopt the platform, use the platform, build things on the platform. So we discussed everything from basically partnerships that we need to procure, to standards, to ways of rating our blockchain versus other blockchain, measurement of things like performance and decentralization, how we deal with people like the PwCs and the Accentures and the McKinseys of the world, and getting them really excited about what we're doing and making them recommend what we do. Things like user experience, development experience. We went back to first principles on user experience. We went to development experience from first principles. The budget, the smart contracts program manager, is going to be running around for quite a bit of time and talking to various different people about the smart contract model and what makes Plutus unique and Marlowe unique and the DSL-oriented approach unique. So that was great. Aparna really helped us focus in on the vision, the mission, the goals, the elevator pitch for the platform. And these are inputs that we can put to McCann as they start helping us with the brand refresh. And it'll give us a much more concise, much more exciting way of talking about Cardano. As I mentioned in my prior AMA, we tend to believe a lot of the things we've done are self-evident. And, we write all these great papers that are super awesome and exceptional and are very advanced. But the reality is the work we've done hasn't really percolated as much as it should throughout the different key constituencies and personas that are going to be the consumers of the platform. So it's really important that we really think deeply now about communication and marketing, and not assuming the work we do is self-evident, but really getting that home and pushing that through. So pretty exciting stuff, and it was just great time, and I really enjoyed spending some time with the team. If you want to know what they look like, we did tweet a photo of the whole team together, and not to be outdone, we've also released a big data dump today, and more information is coming. Basically on staking rewards. So for a long time, we looked at different economic models, and there's kind of a basic principle for how you run these systems. So while the market cap is low, adoption is low, you tend to have a higher inflation rate, because what happens is you have much faster adoption than any amount of inflation would matter. Like, okay, 5% or 10% per year. If you have a 2, 3, 4x on the valuation of the underlying asset, even though inflation is decaying a little bit, the overall adoption is so high, nonlinear, that the inflation is not going to impact the price. So you pay a lot in the beginning, and then if you have lots of adoption, you get very valuable, then you should start paying less and less and less until eventually you get to a point where the network has no inflation or low inflation, and then it's just reallocation from a tax on transactions. So we call this the network deficit, and there's lots of thought about this. So long and short is somewhere between 7 to 12%, depending upon participation. We released a blog post actually explaining this. Kevin Hammond has done a great job. We even have a stake pool calculator you guys can play around with and use. And this is kind of the first attempt. And what's going to happen is stake pools are going to start offering more than just ledger services, more than just consensus services of adding slots, blocks into slots. They're going to start doing a whole litany of other things. There's a whole fee structures that they could add in. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see how that materializes. So data dump successful. We're still thinking about the 9th. We may launch on the 9th for the incentivized testnet. We may not. If we don't, it's not going to be like 10 weeks. It'll be like a few days to a week of a delay, just depending upon how components pull together. So we've begun stress testing of Jormungandr 0.8 RC7, and RC8 should be out in no time. And we just keep doing release candidates, and we're cleaning up things and correcting things along the way. The problem is that every time we do this, we're usually introducing a breaking change, and the other pieces of infrastructure, Adrestia and the Daedalus, have to plug into that. So if we run into a situation where we keep making breaking changes too late into our dev cycle, it will delay the integration of those other components, which will delay the release by a day or two because they just need some time to clean things up. So if not the 9th, it'll be that week, most likely, and be probably towards the earlier part of the week than the back end. But the 9th still looks okay. It just, we'll let you guys know on Friday through a tweet or something, or over the weekend, basically, whether that's good or not. But pretty close. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am. I hope you guys realize that the culmination of pulling all these pieces together to create the incentivized testnet has put certainly some white hair in my beard and my head. And it is an enormous task. Basically, the incentivized testnet is a cryptocurrency. And frankly, you could launch Shelley from it if you wanted to. And had we done that in 2017, people would be pretty happy. And there's just been just so much thought and care and 2 years of protocol design that went into this. And now it's your turn to actually start creating stake pools and doing stuff and letting us know. We have over 3,000 people in the Telegram group that specialize in yelling at us, and they do great work from Rick on down. People have already begun their own stress testing and throwing millions of transactions at their nodes and taking a look at stability and settlement times and so forth. And we've learned an enormous amount. We've done over 50 releases of the Jörmungandr client since the network testnet was released. We've serviced now over 1,000 issues, and we just keep pushing our way forward. The Haskell side is really starting to evolve. We did the release of the 0.1 Haskell node. We're getting architectural diagrams now and all these things and going through each item and getting a sense of where everything's at. And now we're on 2-week release cycles on the Haskell node side for the first time in our company's history. So seeing formal methods in practice actually being put into an agile release process is, I've never seen it done in my career. We aspired to it. Everybody said we were pretty crazy, but now it looks like we're actually getting there. So anyway, Nick is doing a great job on the Adrestia side. He's the product manager there, and we're working real hard to get proper stories and proper agile. And now that we're on 2-week release cycles, we're going to see what we can do with that. So things are moving along. Cardano is really starting to push forward, and we're starting to have meta conversations about how do we compete, how do we commercialize, how do we build things up. See, all cryptocurrencies, they have kind of this ODCC model. You have the operational, delivery, commercialization, and capitalization model. Capitalization is how do you pay for everything to get it all done. Commercialization is people make money using it. How do you make money using it? Delivery is about how do you build it. Operations are what are the things you need to do to keep it running. And Cardano has always been difficult because there are actually 5 entities that were involved, ODCC, and getting all of them to coordinate, work together, and getting everything to be orchestrated in the right way has been really the most difficult challenge of my career. But now, as we enter into 2020, things are just getting unstuck, and they're kind of moving in the right direction. Like, for example, we just added 2 members to the Cardano Foundation board to help accelerate things. So the governing council now has Tamara Hassan and Nico, and both of them are incredibly competent people. And they have proven themselves to not only be capable of doing amazing things, but they've also proven themselves to be very loyal to the Cardano ecosystem and work 7 days a week and travel everywhere and all across the world and so forth. And I, for the first time ever, actually got to sit down with a foundation member and have a real conversation about the Cardano improvement proposal process and talk about protocol proposals, infrastructural proposals, marketing proposals, how to create a solutions group within the organization, how to handle deal flow. So when Bob comes in and says, I need something built, how to route that to preferred service providers. And then how, when a solutions architect looks at it, if they need something from Cardano to support this, how that process should work. And then we started actually, for the first time ever, talking about what a treasury would look like and how deliberation about Cardano improvement proposals should be done and how an RFP process should look and so forth. So that was exciting because, we've just lived so much in the IOHK silo, and I've had to make a lot of these decisions for myself. And I do the best that I can with the information I have and the people advising me. But at the end of the day, this is a community protocol. It's a community effort. Cardano is yours as much as it is mine. And for this to be successful, we have to extend it beyond IOHK, and we have to make sure that there's open collaboration, their open communication. So to be able to actually diagram this and say there's an explicit way to do it, that we can start in a pseudo-federated way that becomes more and more decentralized over time. Super cool, super cool. And anyway, it's good. Life is good. So thank you for your patience. And having said all that, let's get to the AMA part. Okay. I feel like a lot of focus is on the pools and staking, but dApps are what are going to be the next thing. Well, yeah, and that's why we stage releases. So Shelley's about pools and staking and decentralization. And Goguen is about smart contracts and dApps and DSLs and applications and so forth. So let's get Shelley done. And we're getting that done. Oh, shit, RC8 is already out. It's been a long day. Those guys are doing like 2 to 3, sometimes up to 5 releases per week. So it surprises me because they just pump it out and I get like a notification like an hour later. So, all right, RC8 is out. Cool. When did RC8 come out, by the way? Now, I do have white hair, see? It's all throughout the beard. Charles, how does the movement of 40 billion coins in anticipation for staking relate to network's health? Well, that's really good. That means if lots of coins are moving, it means people are actually paying attention to what we're saying. So instead of people just throwing it into a cold wallet and forgetting about it and going away for 2 years, it means that most of our users are dynamic, engaged, and active, which is exactly what you want with a proof of stake system, because the people who own it are capable of actually running it. Charles, did your bald eagle buddy get away clean after the tax office job? Bald eagles are protected by the U.S. government, so they get away with everything. You don't even think about looking at them the wrong way. Hello from Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a beautiful state. Good people. Good fried food. Is New Balance happy with Cardano and the pilot? I believe so. They've never given us any indication otherwise. It is a pilot, and we'd love to expand it across their whole product line. And, you know, it's one of those things where you just kind of look at a lot of key metrics like sales volume, the price differential between authenticated and unauthenticated products, and a lot of other things. And then you make the case of why this needs to be something throughout everything. It was a great product to work on, and we hope to keep doing it. Genuine question. How you doing, buddy? Doing good. Doing really good. How do I get my earnings from the snapshot? So after the incentivized testnet is done, all earnings that are in the accounts will be moved back to the mainnet. And there'll be a blog post explaining how that move back is going to be done. Generally, it's something like you restore some credentials and issue a transaction and that. But that whole flow will be explained when we get closer to the mainnet. Can you explain a little more how you've managed to use formal methods with agile development? That's a $64,000 question. Not only am I going to explain, we wrote a paper, and that paper is actually being circulated internally, and then we'll publish it publicly. That kind of explains our experiences and what we learned from it. By no means are we done with it, and there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out, but that's going to be one of the great stories of the IHK experience, where we were able to basically get the value of formal methods without having to use heavyweight formal methods and still be able to go into release cycles that are reasonable. And for example, we're doing this now with the specification of Goguen, where we have the extended UTXO model and we need to adapt the Shelley ledger rules to correspond with that. So Polina is actually doing this real time with implementation of those ledger rules and real time with the property-based testing that we're doing. So it's really cool to see all those things come together. And it's really cool to see how incredible this stuff is for software quality. There's just not really that many bugs that we're coming up with. And when we find them, we are able to fix them very quickly. And the software quality is remarkably high. So that's pretty cool. What do you think about nuclear fusion and the French Revolution? Those are pretty orthogonal questions. Nuclear fusion is super cool. There's two dominant forms. There's like what's happening with tokamaks and Ether and stellarators, so that basically you have low pressure plasma that gets kind of pushed together by the magnetic fields and kind of a torus structure. And those are really interesting. The problem is material sciences need to evolve a little bit. Magnetic containment of fusion is a little difficult. And then there's the American way of doing things, which is called laser fusion, where we just supercharge a bunch of lasers up on a big battery, and then we shoot them out of a hull ROM, which is a little target. And there's a little bit of deuterium in it. And then it gets 200 times denser than lead and just forms a fusion. Both of them are really cool. The laser fusion is being done at a place called National Ignition Facility. The person who runs it is Ed Moses, and they've even developed a hybrid reactor, nuclear fusion, nuclear fission, called LIFE, a laser inertial fusion engine. And it's energy positive, actually. So we actually broke that milestone, which is a huge, huge deal. IEC fusion has not been energy positive for 100 years, since Philo Farnsworth came up with it. Actually, a long time ago, when I was much younger, I actually helped build a Farnsworth fuser. So that was a fun project. It's nothing like building a star to sit on your desktop. Now, the stellarator stuff and the magnetic confinement fusion is much more elegant, and it does require a lot more science and a lot more careful thought. But many scientists feel that that's a better approach than the laser fusion approach. But they both have their trade-offs, and they both have their ups and downs. So the Europeans are ahead of us in that, and Americans are ahead of them in laser fusion. But both of them are very viable. And probably in the 2030 to 2050 timeframe, I think that we'll actually start seeing real-life fusion plants produce energy and do great things. What's really sad, though, is that nuclear fission should not be discounted immediately. The problem with the perception of traditional nuclear energy is we tend to believe three things. One, that it's not scalable down. Two, that the waste sticks around forever. And that three, that nuclear accidents will end us all because of Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and these things. The reality is fourth generation nuclear power, all of these things are not true. You can scale reactor design from the gigawatt down to the megawatt. Second, you can actually, like, for example, the traveling wave reactor or these other things, build meltdown proof reactions. And third, there's ways to process the fuel so that it has a very short half-life, and thus you can store dry cask on site. So nuclear power is just awesome, and there's just so many advancements that have been made over the last 10, 15 years, some of which have been politically barred. For example, the use of breeder reactors. It allows you to take waste uranium and upgrade it into fissile materials. But unfortunately, we don't allow that to propagate, for better or for worse, mostly because we fear the propagation of nuclear weapons. So it's a fascinating field, and it's a pivotal component, I believe, to solving the energy crisis, at least for the generation side. You still need to figure out the storage and transmission side. Those are the other two components. Ouroboros does not require trusted hardware to be secure. It's an optimizing example for a practical implementation of the protocol. Has this example come to a solution? Yeah, we don't require trusted hardware. It's nice to have for the KES component because then you can get a second assurance that that the keys have been erased. But with the Genesis and Schizeros research that we've done, even if you attempt to reuse the keys, people will simply reject, assuming there hasn't been a 51% attack Genesis assumption. Schizeros will be a recovery mechanism for that. But you don't need to erase the keys. But it's nice to actually put trusted hardware in, because not only can you use it for things like erasing keys and getting proof of secure erasure. So in case you don't trust our research, you have a second layer of security. You can reuse that for oracles. You can reuse that for state channel optimization and a litany of other services. Also, quantum resistant checkpoints. You could create a closing ceremony at the end of each epoch where an MPC occurs with all of the stake pools, and they can distributively generate a checkpoint and sign it with a quantum resistant signature, which who cares if it's space efficient or not? It happens once every 5 days. And then you can use that to create an additional level of assurance. So, protocol design, if you do it properly, you don't just have one adversarial model and you don't have just one security notion. You layer things and you say, well, even if this wall fails, I have these two fallbacks so that the protocol is still secure. And the fact that you can do this very cheaply and easily with consumer hardware or mild protocol design is an awesome thing. And it's something we're exploring. Charles Hoskinson, why are dead kings on your Twitter profile? I get asked this a lot, and people seem to misinterpret it, like I want to be a king or something. It's a historical warning. So those kings were actually attending a funeral. It was King Edward's funeral over in England, and he died in the 1910s, shortly before World War I. And at that time, that group of people were real kings. They controlled enormous amounts of wealth, power, and standing armies, and about a third of all the land in the world. So the paradigm is that this group of people were the movers and shakers, and that basically absolute power, dictatorship, and birthright power, divine right of kings was the way to go. And then just 10 years later, almost everybody in that room was either dead, depowered, or put into a position where they really didn't have that level of control, and their empires collapsed. So it shows you the sinkhole effect of social dynamics. Sinkholes never form from the top down, they form from the bottom up. So when you're driving down the road, you think you're driving on normal everyday road, and then suddenly you fall into a hole. And so societies are like that. When you look at the 1910 government of Germany, it looked like a clean road, but there was a sinkhole forming. And after World War I, the whole republic, the whole dictatorship collapsed, and it led to a lot of disruption. The same for the Tsar in Russia and many other places. So the picture is a reminder of that. And its analogy is to social systems and to the financial system. We tend to believe the legacy financial system, the dominance of the dollar, the US regulatory system, these things are eternal or super strong and cannot be displaced. But what we're seeing is evidence of a sinkhole forming. And crypto is basically eating away, as are other systems eating away, and the greed of these systems eating away at that stability. And one day we'll see the whole collapse and we'll fall through, and the whole social order will change, just like it did when we got rid of kings and replaced them with other things. Any info about McCann? Cardano Foundation is leading that effort, and that will be an update that they give, but pretty awesome. Is mathematics invented or discovered? I've had that conversation a lot. Richard Dawkins or Yuval Harari? Yuval Harari is the Richard Dawkins of my generation. Yeah, you got to love them both. His Dawkins' work on memes is truly extraordinary, and Harari's work on saying that society is constructed from narratives and social fictions is extraordinary as well. And they're very complementary models in a certain respect. The reason I have not invested in ADA is because of you. Well, good for you. I'm glad you love me so much that I can help you steer and make life decisions. It's good to hear that I've had that kind of impact on people. Will Cardano decouple from Bitcoin? Yes, once we have lots of practicality and use cases and things we're running on the network. Charles, can I start a pool in the testnet today? Now, when we launch the incentivized testnet, you can. And people can delegate to you. White mask tonight? We could do the white mask. Nice shirt, looking good. Thank you, James McLean. You know, McLovin is almost in his 40s. Poor super bad, man. Hi, Charles. Will development on Daedalus Mantis resume, or will there be an integration with Daedalus for Cardano? Daedalus is already integrated with Cardano. I think you're meaning, will we support ETC with one client? And you have ADA and ETC in the same client. There's no plan for that. We did continue working on the Mantis code base. We're doing something special with it. It's not related to ETC at the moment, but we like that. That team was never broken up. I kept them doing interesting things and exploring some very specific questions I had about certain topics that shall remain nameless. And at some point, we'll make a statement about what they've been working on. And they've been doing some super interesting work for a year and a half. I'm truly sorry, we couldn't make more momentum and progress with the ETC community. I mean, we couldn't even get a development grant to maintain support for our ETC with Mantis. And it's a good community. There's good people there. There's just been a lot of hardship. I think that the current roadmap they have is not sustainable, and that major innovation is required if ETC wants to compete with Ethereum. This argument of principles and stability being enough to sustain it is insane, because Bitcoin is rapidly upgrading. With Taproot and these other things, and Lightning coming online, Bitcoin will have smart contracts, and Bitcoin has never, ever had an issue with integrity and ethics and mutability and so forth. It's always been the chain that just does what it does, and it has 10 years of track record behind it, and a significantly higher valuation and hash rate and a much larger group of adherents. So if the only thing ETC has got going for it is it sticks to its principles and it's got smart contracts, it has nothing on BTC. So you need to innovate. You need to do something different. You need to provide a compelling story, a narrative to the market about why you have a right to exist. And when we went to the ETC summits in Hong Kong, Vancouver, and South Korea, for the first two in particular, in Hong Kong and South Korea, it was very difficult to work with ETC, with ETC's dev group. I'm spacing the name right now. It was led by Igor and his guys. They were openly hostile to us for having the audacity to write a client. Either they viewed us as unnecessary or overly academic, but it was a bizarre reality where people were making open source contributions, asking for nothing, and providing support and love to the community were being basically picked on for no reason. So that was challenging. And we tried to find ways to create funding mechanisms for ETC. For example, I believe very strongly the existence of a treasury, and I still do, would be a game changer. And there's evidence of this in both the Dash and the Zero Cash communities, the Zcash communities, where the money that was invested there has kept those projects viable, alive, and kept high-quality professional developers and scientists in that ecosystem to build that ecosystem up. And add the added value of having dApps and being able to fund dApps through an alternative model, it makes absolutely no sense to say that a treasury is not viable. And say, well, we're just such a hostile community and we can't get along and can't agree to anything. So there's no way you can entrust us with democracy to allocate some funds somewhere, is a crazy notion. And it's just really sad that came up. But we did get Mantis out of it. We learned an enormous amount about the design of the EVM. We learned a lot about Vitalik's smart contract model through that process. And in a way, it was actually pretty cool because I was a founder of Ethereum and I never got a chance to build an Ethereum client. And actually for a time, Mantis worked with both the Ethereum network as a node and the Ethereum Classic network. So technically, I built an Ethereum client. So I kind of finished what I started in 2014 with Mantis. And it was a great piece of software, like 14,000 lines of code, heavy use of property-based testing. We passed the entire Ethereum test suite for the EVM. And you could sync with both chains and download the blockchain, actually use it and submit transactions from it, submit messages from it. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of Alan Verbner and Brian McKenna and Alan McSherry and others who participated and continue to participate to some extent with that code base to answer questions. And I like the ETC community as a whole. I think they're very passionate people, and I met a lot of good people like Bruno Paleo and Stuart McKenzie and others from that community. So I don't regret the time we spent there, and I just kind of feel sad that we couldn't do more and we couldn't come to terms with that. And I like Bob Summerwall a lot. He's a pretty interesting guy. He's the only person in the world that's ever given me maple syrup as a gift, and it was good maple syrup. Hi, Charles. Do we need to register, create a stake pool? You register stake pools on the blockchain, and there's documentation for how to do that. Bye, Darko. It was nice seeing you, buddy. Darko's actually at the office, but he's outside. You know, we've discussed DC Funhouse Chainlink a lot, and we'll make a statement about that. Nick, one of our product managers, has a big affinity for Chainlink, and he thinks that that's a great example of a very effective piece of infrastructure. There was a 100 pages long paper submitted that says Ouroboros' way of doing proof of stake isn't viable. Did IOHA ever publish a response? I'm not aware of the paper, Martin. And generally speaking, when you submit these papers, you submit them to conferences, and you don't do them on Reddit or Twitter. You at least give us the courtesy of emailing the damn thing to our scientists. There's a lot of people say a lot of things, and good for them. What is your ELO rating? Guess. If you can guess it, I'll tell you. Alex Chirpinoy. Alex, by the way, is the creator of Ergo and Scorex, two of the most interesting projects in the history of the cryptocurrency space. And frankly, they deserve a lot more attention and a lot more traction, especially Ergo. There's great work there with the AVL trees, the non-outsourceable puzzles. I think his is the first cryptocurrency to deploy that, Sigma protocols, and a litany of other things. And Alex actually did work with IOHK for quite some time and published some papers with our people and Han Chang and others. And his particular question is, glad to see you. What do you think about the 8th hard fork of Vitalik's chain? Vitalik signed up to build a world computer, and that's what he's doing. And $16 billion of value is there, and a lot of people believe in him. And he has every right to lead his people to the promised land as he sees it, and they have every right to follow him. I think that the Tezos approach of saying that the protocol should be aware of its design and use democratic mechanisms to approve protocol upgrades is a much more viable and long-term effort. Without this, then you run into a situation of he who controls the client controls the universe. And unfortunately, that's always going to be very centralized. So I wish Vitalik well. He certainly doesn't say kind, nice things about me and ignores all the research we do except to criticize it. But I do believe he's doing good work. And I hope that they are successful in their forking endeavors. Hi, Charles. Do you smoke cigars with Bill Clinton? Not anymore. What else do you have? Will excessive power usage for BTC be its Achilles heel? Yes. When is the data dump? Already did it. Go to our website, the IOHK blog. Chris Larson said in the conference, Bitcoin will change to POS in the future. No, it will not. That is a cray-cray community. They think proof of work is God, and they think everything else is bad. Proof of work. Charlie, Chico Crypto accepted your fight invitation. Chicken out. Did he? Send me a link to the video. I'll see if he actually did. If he did, we'll figure this shit out. It'll have to be after Shelley and Goguen, but I'm down. He did. Oh, cool. Well, fuck, we got to figure this out then. All right. We'll get around to it after Shelley ships, because I want to like kill him twice. Once with Shelley shipping and once in the ring. Then I got to train. I'm training to go down to Antarctica. So after I do Antarctica, I'll do that. But 2020 is going to be a fun year, guys. All right, get Crypto Crow on the horn too, and see if he actually wants to be the promoter. We can do it over in Ohio. I missed his conference, so that'd be fun. Of course, I keep it real, man. Got to keep it real. Will we hire social and political scientists for Voltaire? Yes. On the complexity theory side, that's the aggregation point. That's the way to think about it. No, hang on. He sure did. He says he's going to fuck you up UFC side. I said a boxing match, not a UFC match. I don't do UFC. Boxing. He was a wrestler, so I never wrestled, but I did do a little bit of that, boxing, so I can do him in boxing. Is this going to be like a Conor McGregor thing with Floyd Mayweather? I'm the bigger guy, so I get Floyd Mayweather rules. He has to box. One Cadillac. I already have a Cadillac. I got a CT6. Charles, I want to be in your corner. Got 15 years of Taekwondo competitions experience. If we actually do this, then I'm going to put a whole training team together, and I'll send you a message about it. Because I'm a fucking training, guys. That's why I need some time. Can't lose that. Have you read Atlas Shrugged? Yes, I have. Mr. John Galt. ELO 2150. No, a little lower, 1900. What is your IQ? Are you Mensa material? Never took a test. Probably pretty low. Charles, will Cardano use Tor, snarks, blah, blah for privacy? Anything you're working on? We do work with mixed nets. We do work with private computation, and we do work with snarks. We've even created our own snark, but we're not doing that for Cardano at the moment. Not in scope for the 2020 vision. Cybertruck, Mad Max. How often do you check the value of ADA? I get reports on social metrics and price metrics on a pretty much a daily basis from my team. And that's how I check the value of ADA. Have you ever been to Florence? Yes. Actually, that's where my ancestors on the Italian side were from. Florence in Sicily. Married a Sicilian, got kicked out of the country. La Roga del Sud. What about those masks on the background? Is it part of a ritual in IOHK? They are ritualistic, but they're not part of IOHK. It's for the New World Order stuff, guys. Charles, how many languages do you speak? 1. Barely. Hi, Charles. I just noticed that you are a verified Brave creator. Am I? I haven't never really set that thing up. I got to set it up so you guys can donate. You know what we should do? We should create a micro tipping app for Cardano so you guys can send me ADA. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. IOHK satellite, nodes in space. If we have a functioning treasury and the price cap is high enough, I will absolutely commit to submitting a ballot for Leo. We'll call up our friends at SpaceX and we probably can get it done in the $100 to $200 million range. Did you mean to tweet McCain or McCann? McCann. It was auto-corrected on my phone to McCain. It was McCann. Not the dead politician, but the marketing agency. How many delays will Goguen have, Charles? As many delays as necessary, but not as many delays as you'd think. You have the same shirt? We both shop at Costco. Yeah. Good for you, man. How big is your team now? 230 people. DC or Marvel? Oof, that's a really hard one. Marvel's done a much better job executing than DC, but the characters in DC are more human and compelling. Batman. How's your gout? Must have improved since you started your diet. Absolutely. Haven't had a gout attack in a long time. On a scale of 1 to JFK, how likely was it that Epstein killed himself? He didn't kill himself, guys. He was murdered. We all know it. It is what it is, you know. So intelligence agencies love when certain people can get rich people to sleep with underage girls and record it, because those tapes are liquid gold for coercion. Every single one of Epstein's rooms was wired for video and sound, and all the videos disappeared before he died. The police never got them. Why would he do that? Why would we really trust you? What makes you trustworthy? I'm trustworthy enough because I tell you directly, don't trust me. Don't trust people. Trust code. Trust protocols. Trust science. The raison d'etre of Cardano has been process over people. Basically, the idea is saying, look, people are fallible. We wake up with bad days. We get coerced. Think of mice. Things happen. People die. Systems get mingled and mangled by things. So if you have code, you have protocols, you have checks and balances, you have the scientific method, you get third-party, independent, non-biased, federated opinions about what reality happens to be. If you ever read a book like Social Physics from Alex Pentland, the wisdom of the crowds, if properly utilized with proper idea flow, always outperforms any individual human. So don't trust me, trust the code, trust the protocol, trust the process. And then the only question is, what is the best process to achieve what we want? And what are the right incentives to create that process and maintain that process? An expert recently said that we're about 3 years away from state-owned quantum computers. There's already state-owned quantum computers. Sorry, kids. Been running for a while. What happened to Virgil Griffith? Well, Virgil went to North Korea against my advice and many other people's advice. He aided and abetted a foreign state as a U.S. citizen. Whether he intended to do that or not, that's the opinion of the U.S. government. And he's probably going to spend 20 years in jail because of it. It's not a joke. Evil, murderous regimes that put people in concentration camps that are still at war with the United States. As a U.S. citizen, you don't go talk to them. You don't interact with them. Whether you agree with the policy or not, as a U.S. citizen, you're constrained by that policy. And he was told by the State Department not to go. He was told by his peers and colleagues not to go, except for Vitalik, who said had fun. And he went. And that's great. For if his plan was to go to jail. It was stupid. And this is the problem with these open source hacker people. They just think they're smarter than everybody else, and they think the rules don't apply to them. They think that society will somehow bend its way to accommodate, acquiesce their behavior. And then they somehow wake up and realize there are consequences to their actions. I don't like a lot of the laws in the United States. For example, I believe very firmly that the laws against psilocybin and hallucinogenic mushrooms, hallucinogenic substances are counterproductive because there's overwhelming medical evidence that they're beneficial for treatment of depression and end-of-life issues. Michael Pollan exhaustively outlined these things in his book, How to Change Your Mind. That said, I don't grow magic mushrooms on my ranch, and I don't sell them, because I would be a criminal if I did. So I disagree with the policy. I vote to change the policy. I tell people we should change the policy, but I still follow the law. And in the case of North Korea, it's a country that has proved time and again that it loves the days of Stalin and the tactics of Stalin. It embraces a cult of personality. They brutally punish people. They even force people to have kids so they can throw their kids into a concentration camp. So they can do multi-generation punishment. And they have artillery pointed towards Seoul, and at any time can kill millions of people within 10 minutes if they choose to. And this is a national policy. And to promote this policy, they starve their population. If you ever go to Pyongyang, you'll see thousands of American flags floating everywhere because they're from aid our country gives them as part of their hostage diplomacy that they do. And they let people use the bags. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting what's going on there. And the whole point of the conference was set up by a propagandist, a useful idiot, who basically wanted to bring people from the cryptocurrency space to North Korea to see if they could coerce them into aiding and abetting North Korea in using cryptocurrencies to evade sanctions. And Virgil played into it. He joined that useful idiot's conference and became the useful idiot of North Korea. Now, I can't say it any more bluntly and directly. I like Virgil as a person. He's been very nice to me and cordial to me. I've met him at many conferences. We get along, and I respect his work, and I respect that he's a good member of the Ethereum ecosystem. That said, he did something that was illegal, knowingly, repeatedly told not to do it. And he aided a country indirectly that does horrible things to human beings. If anything, just giving them free publicity that members of the Ethereum elite are coming to their country to aid them. This is not a joke. It's not a laughing matter. I get invited all the time to go to Iran. I love the Iranian people. They're some of the smartest people around. Great universities. They're wonderful Cardano members in our community. I can't go to Iran. I'd love to go, but I can't. And it hurts me. Because I honestly believe that this is one of the best tools, Cardano and cryptocurrencies, to help liberate Iran from a government that's not so good, and a government that really doesn't promote peace and the welfare and equality of people, especially for gay and women's rights. And I would love to see blockchain technology be used to topple that government and replace it with a functioning democracy that respects human rights. But I can't go to the country to preach that because it would be against policy of the United States. So the best I can do is over this podcast to say, I wish him well and hang in there, and please do educate yourselves and do your best. That's all I can do until the policy changes. If he was working for the CIA, the FBI wouldn't have arrested him. Do you know Jordan Peterson? My co-founder met him, but I didn't actually have a chance to see him. He saw him with Sam Harris over in London. I think that Jordan's doing great work, and he's a really bright guy, and he's starting a phenomenal conversation, especially what does it mean to be a man in the 21st century, and how do we stabilize society? The society is not as stable as it needs to be. What about that critical bug reemerging from 2017, Charlie? There's no critical bug. There was a issue with the way HD wallets were implemented, and we had to re-implement them incorrectly to be able to support restoration of wallets. But it was never a security issue. It was just a dumb way of generating things. And unfortunately, the old code was riddled with a lot of that stuff. So we, just had to overcome it. Our dilemma, guys, is kind of like where the U.S. government is right now with the space program. So we had the space shuttle. For better or for worse, we had it. And it was something that ran. And, we had two major disasters, Challenger and Columbia. And then somewhere along the way, U.S. policymakers said, we're going to get rid of the space shuttle and we're going to replace it with a new launch platform, American-made. Great. And we're going to do it through private space. Okay. So ULA and SpaceX are the two big contenders, and they're providing a very beautiful path for America to be able to launch its own rockets, launch its own people. In the interim, ironically, we use the Russians to launch our people into space. And it's just frustrating and it's painful because we say, wow, we have all the technology, all the know-how. We kind of invented this industry with them. We should be launching our own people, but we just have to wait it out. And it's the same situation here. We're running on Russian written code for Cardano. And we have this amazing team of engineers doing a SpaceX level effort to release something like the Dragon and like reusable rockets. And it's really amazing and really special. You just got to wait. And it's almost out. And it's frustrating because, we don't want to be running on the bad stuff and the old stuff. What kind of music do you listen to? Do you have a favorite band growing up? Mostly classic rock and lots of classical. I was a classically trained pianist. Wasn't very good at it, but I did fall in love with Chopin. That's pretty good. Pink Floyd and Boston are my two favorite bands. Do you think Paul is Satoshi? No. Do you read books on leadership? All the time. Do you plan to come to Romania? Absolutely. Classic rock, Kiss. Kiss is a good band, surprisingly good. They're just great at marketing too, man. They even have the Kiss coffin. Go figure. All right, we're just about to close this up. So let's find something here. Can we run law systems on blockchains? Yes. Look at the Open Law Project. Absolutely. That's the killer DSL of 2025. The codification of law is not only something we should do, it is the only moral thing for our society to do. I think one of the greatest injustices of the 20th and 21st century is to say ignorance of the law is no excuse for not following it, but then making the law so complicated that no one can follow it without inadvertently committing some felony sometime. It's evil, it's moral, it's disgusting, and it hurts the poor more than the rich. And the law has become a tool for the wealthy and for the privileged and the powerful and the well-connected to basically find a legal means for the government to hurt those who can't understand the law for whatever reason. So we have a moral obligation to take the legal systems that live in the old paper meat space world and convert them into machine understandable systems. Then we can ask queries, very simple queries. Is what I'm going to do illegal? That's simple. The government has a moral obligation to get to that level of clarity. I, as a business owner, would like to know if I'm going to do action X, is it legal or not? If the government's job is to punish me if I break the law, the government should also be responsible for telling me that what I'm doing is breaking the law, so I shouldn't be able to do it. And so open law and DSLs to codify contracts and regulation, they're necessary. They'll save trillions of dollars globally. It's the only way we're going to ever be able to create global laws and global policies. And also, it's the only way to be moral. Have you been to Sweden? I am going to Sweden very soon. I'm going to go fly in a wind tunnel. Hi, Charles. How are you? I'm from Ethiopia. I've been asking about Atala project updates. Well, hello from Ethiopia. We are definitely making some progress there. We're right now in the feasibility study phase with the Ministry of Innovation and Technology. That team is just kind of working with some of our partners like Omar and others. And we're just basically getting a better understanding of the key actors, the regulation, how cash in, cash out is going to work, how one would digitize an asset like Bear. And basically what the user experience would need to be like, and then also the extensibility of the system. Also, can the system be coupled with the Prime Minister's desire for a digital identity system, for example? So that's the feasibility study phase. It'll take a few months. Then if the feasibility study comes out positive, it'll give us all the business and technical requirements for a pilot. Then we'll run the pilot, and if the pilot is successful, then an RFP process will be created to basically enable the system for 4 million people. And we will bid on that and probably form a PPP, a public-private partnership. As with all things in Africa, we're on Africa time, and generally these projects require 3 to 7 years, a coalition, direct foreign investment, grant agencies, and a lot of things, and usually regulatory changes as well. It is not simple. It's among the most complicated deal-making you can do. Is David Klein Satoshi? No. Carnivore diet. That's pretty crazy. How do you get fiber? And what I learned, guy, is like, no, you don't need fiber. But I'm like, I don't know about that. That's pretty crazy. What Rode mic did you get, and how is it so far? Well, maybe you can see the Rode mic. Huh. Well, anyway, it's whatever top of the line one. And if you guys can hear me all right, Charles, what do you think about the new James Bond trail? I haven't even seen that. I've been so busy. So busy. Will Cardano play any part in driverless cars? The brokering of 802.11p, so for V2V and V2I, blockchain is necessary for that. It does make sense to deploy that on permissionless infrastructure as opposed to a permission network. What about pulling payments, Charles? Pull payments will be supported by Cardano. Do you recognize your quantum self? I can barely recognize myself. I don't think I can get along with my quantum self. All right. Well, almost done, but there was a request for the white mask. You guys really like these things. They're pretty cool, aren't they? So here's the white one. So we had the dark side. Now we have the white side. So let's get a picture for that. And give me one more question to answer. With the mask on, nobody cared who I was until I wore the mask. Okay, what do we see here? I get a little closer to read these. When do you expect the Cardano project to be done? So the Cardano project will never be done. Cryptocurrencies are never done. It's just like asking, when is the government done? When is education done? It's a process, and cryptocurrencies are infrastructure for you, the people. And if I do my job right, the infrastructure is built in a way that it can evolve always to meet the needs of the people without compromising on its founding principles. Just like the US Constitution. We've done our job right. Everything is just somehow, some way going to work. Anyway, until next time, my friends, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And I shall see you soon. See you in Vegas. Cheers.